Hi, I'm Daniel Foley, and in this video I want to talk to you about getting out of the wilderness. So have you ever felt like you were stuck? Like you are trying everything that you know to do, but it's just not working? Maybe you're trying to do things that have worked in the past, but it's not working anymore. All the things that you're trying, nothing's working, and you're just struggling to get to the next level and finally break through to the next level. Well, I've been there too. If you're going through that, what I would tell you is there might be a good chance that you are in the wilderness. So in the Bible, there's this concept of wilderness that you see in the Bible. And you see the Israelites were in the wilderness for 40 years. Jesus is in the wilderness for 40 days. Moses is in the wilderness for 40 years. So the wilderness in the Bible is always correlated with the number 40. So the number 40 in the Bible, like I said, is always correlated with wildernesses. And it seems like anytime when someone was in the wilderness, it had to do with some kind of number of 40, some period of 40 something, days, years, whatever it may be. I had a time where I was struggling in my business. I was trying to get my business to the next level. I was trying all kinds of things, trying to find the way to break us through to the next level, and it seemed like nothing was working. And then I had this time where the Lord clearly showed me that I had spent 40 months in the wilderness and it was time to come out. So He showed me the exact day, and it was very clear that, hey, my time in the wilderness was over and it was time to get out. So how do you get out of the wilderness? If you're stuck in the wilderness, how do you get out? Okay, so first and foremost, I want to tell you that if you're in the wilderness, it's actually a good thing. So God only gives good gifts. So He's good and He only does good. So He has you in the wilderness for a reason. So if you think of a woman who's pregnant, she is typically pregnant for 40 weeks. So you notice that period of 40 is still the same. So think of your time in the wilderness like you are a baby in the womb, so to speak. And that's actually the safest place for you. So as you're growing and developing, as a baby's growing and developing, the safest place for them is actually in the womb. And similar for you, oftentimes the safest place for us is actually in the wilderness until we grow and develop to the point where we can enter into our promised land. So it's important that you understand that. So we have to grow and develop during this time in the wilderness. Okay, so that's the first and foremost. So it's a time of growth and development. So what is this growth and development that needs to take place? It's basically the time that Christ is being formed in you. Okay, so the Apostle Paul says that he's in labor pains again until Christ is formed in you, as he's talking to the Galatians, I believe it was. So it's this time where Christ is being formed in you. So how do you actually get out of the wilderness? So I don't pretend to have all the answers to this, but I'm going to tell you from my own experience what I know. First and foremost is you got to believe. So if you look in the example from the Old Testament when the Israelites were in the wilderness, they had an opportunity to come out earlier before 40 years. So God tells them to go into the promised land and to spy it out and to come back and bring a report of what the land is like. And so they come back with this report and they say, hey, there's giants in the land. And the people start to murmur and complain and say, oh, it would have been better for us if we had just stayed in Egypt. And so a lot of times God is going to give you a glimpse of what your promised land looks like. And so the first thing is you got to believe that God has good plans for you. You got to believe that He's got something better for you now in this life, also in heaven as well. So you've got to believe that He's got these good plans for you and that He's trying to bring you into them and that Him being with you is all that you need and that He can help make it come into pass. So you got to have this belief in God. So the Israelites didn't believe. It was only Joshua and Caleb who actually believed, and they were the only ones who actually got to enter into the promised land. So the sad truth from that we see is that not everybody always gets to enter into the promised land because they won't believe. Okay, so if you're full of doubt and fear and unbelief, you may not enter your promised land. It takes believing in God and in His promises that they are true to actually enter into your promised land. Okay, so that's the second one on there. So if you want to get out of your promised land, like I said, you got to believe. But if you're going to believe, you need to know what you're believing in. So during this time where I got out of the promised land, I really had started to put God in first place, put the Word in first place, and you got to get into your Bible and you got to know what those promises are, because if you don't know what He's promised you, how can you believe in where He's leading you? So you got to believe that He's got good plans for you. You got to realize that the wilderness is a good thing. It's a place for you to grow and develop until you get to that point. And that it's actually better for you to be in the wilderness until you truly believe. Because if you entered into your promised land before you were ready, there's giants there, and you're not gonna last very long. You're gonna have to learn how to live a new way when you get into your promised land, and a lot of that has to do with faith and believing. So just like a baby is better off in the womb and not being born prematurely, you're better off in the wilderness until you learn to truly believe. And that only comes through time and trust in the Lord, of getting to know Him, taking action on things in the Bible, and seeing that they're true. And so that's what I would tell you. If you want to get out of the wilderness, more than anything, you just got to believe.